Hi everyone, welcome to our discussion on the strategy behind experiential marketing. My name is Anna Fogg, I'm Global Strategy Director at The Mill, and I'm joined by my colleague Min-Wei.
Hi, my name is Min-Wei Lee. I'm an associate creative strategist out of the New York office of The Mill, and my focus is creative technology.
Hello Min-Wei. Today we're going to talk about how we approach immersive and interactive experiences from a strategic point of view, talk a little bit about our process, talk about what we're looking to create with brands, how we work with brands in this space, some of the challenges that brands can face in this space, obviously some of the insights from the last year and what immersive and interactive kind of now means to audiences. And we'll look at really the kind of full gamut of where we are working with brands really across the whole of the customer experience. And then we'll throw in some predictions from the future. From the future? Yes, to the future. Just so we can either be right or wrong in 6 months' time. Our job at The Mill really is to work with brands to ensure that we deliver on their briefs and make sure that we create impact. And when we kind of talk about impact, that's really making sure that we are resonating in culture, creating experiences that people want to connect to, and also making sure that there's a real position or narrative for the brand in that space. So a lot of the work that we do when we first get a brief in from a brand, and those briefs can be incredibly varied. Sometimes it's make me an event, sometimes it's help me solve a problem, or how shall I use tech? Really, we get a lot of very broad briefs. We really start from a kind of customer experience and experience planning process. We find that a lot of the brands that we work with want to tell better stories, and we understand that technology and immersive and interactive spaces allow us to do that. We also do work that is around kind of more utility, so creating opportunities for audiences to get closer to products, to get closer to the brand in retail, or more utilitarian environments. But obviously our concern as strategists is to make sure that we understand the challenges that our brand is facing, the goals or what they want to achieve, and designing experiences that really help them do that. We work with a lot of brands in the entertainment industry. We work with lots of brands in fashion and gaming. And, we kind of tend to think that these are the kind of brands that have worlds in which we can create sort of more immersive experiences. But really, the way that we approach the briefs that we work on with clients, always from a customer centric point of view. What is it that the customer needs? What is it that they're going to respond to? How are they going to respond? And then design out, making sure there's a really clear role for the brand in that connection and in that experience. But we're designing something that people want to connect to. That's also making sure that it's really relevant for that audience in terms of the culture and the cultures that we're engaging. The technology that currently we work with, very much focused in AR and VR and XR, and sort of mobile experiences and going through to web. So really, and Min-Wei is going to come on to talk about this. It's not about the tech, it's really about the experience that we want to create. So we're working a lot across a lot of different platforms and a lot of different technologies at any one point. I think there's something to be said for categories that may feel like they are excluded. As I said, a lot of the brands that we work for and with come from places that have worlds of their own, that have different and interesting and vast IPs that we can explore with them, the audiences are hugely engaged with or in. I think, though, that is a wonderful benefit of the way that we work, and it's great when we can work with entertainment brands and explore those different worlds. But really, when we're starting to think about interactive and immersive experiences, it doesn't just need to be those brands who have, enormous worlds to explore. I think, taking sort of insight from the fashion category, we can see that and experiences. They have a show, that's obvious, but there's also different opportunities for different brands to immerse the audiences that they have in their brand worlds. And I think, just to come back to the point that we, always start from, what is it that we're giving the audience? Is it an access to the brand? Is it access to a product? Is it access to a fantasy? Is it access to a community? And can we do that with the brands that we work with? So I think even though we've seen a lot of more of the bigger entertainment brands and the fashion brands and obviously the gaming brands in this space, I really think there is a role for interactive and immersive experience. There's a whole range of brands, and it's really just understanding that full extent of the customer journey and where you're looking to design or innovate around the experience as a whole. And that's certainly how we work. As I mentioned before, we sometimes, and obviously we will accept all briefs, never say no, there's no such thing as a bad brief. Come and people will say, I really want to use tech, which is a great starting point. But I'm going to hand over to Min-Wei now, just to talk a little bit about what that means to us at the Mill.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So I feel like, for brands, it's very easy to, actually for anybody, it's very easy for us to become overcome by this thing called shiny object syndrome when we're exploring, the uses of creative technologies for these immersive experiences. I think we oftentimes get caught up in the potential PR opportunities that could be, drummed up, that we end up post-rationalizing our strategy to fit a certain type of technology that may be very, that may be all over the news. But I feel like this is more often than not a doomed approach, just because unfortunately that sort of way into a project often ignores the value to the customer. And, our consumers and our audiences are really intelligent. They are going to sense that lack of authenticity and understanding of their needs and desires. And that's going to make them indifferent, or worse, think negatively towards the brand because of this lack of authenticity. So I think we really need to flip that thinking, and, as Anna has mentioned, start with a more empathetic understanding of what our consumers want and what they need. Something that is, starting from a place of cultural resonance, that speaks to the language of today, that is always going to make the brief better. And, whatever tech is best suited to facilitate whatever insight, audience-led insight that we end up identifying, that will be the best tech to use. And sometimes the answer is just a really beautiful website. Might not sound very sexy, but web technology has come a very, very long way. So don't underestimate that. And I think another thing to think about when we're building these virtual experiences is what is the consumer's sort of level of tech literacy and access. So, for example, last year when we did this project for HBO called Sanctum, this was for the launch of their new tentpole series Lovecraft Country. They really wanted to generate hype amongst their, this new fan base. And we had this experience that was catered to about 100 plus influencers that were very influential in this fandom. And they came from all backgrounds of, tech literacy. So some people had never even used a VR headset before, and we were sort of expecting them to immerse themselves into this virtual reality world. So we made sure when we were picking the hardware, that we were picking something that was very easy to set up, had a seamless process. There weren't too many components to it when you sort of open up the box. And that's why we went with the Oculus Quest headset, because all-in-one, tetherless, you don't need a powerful computer. It's all inbuilt. So, so yeah, that in the end was very successful. And in order to sort of broaden that audience beyond just the people who had the privilege of donning the headset, we also brought this onto YouTube Live for the rest of the fandom to enjoy what these influencers were watching over the course of those 3 events for Lovecraft Country.
Very cool. I think that picks up on a point that's really important. When we're talking about investment, we're also talking about sort of access to kind of these events. How are people going to hear about them? The event in itself, or the experience in itself is, we need to work out how we best design that, and certainly we do that through an audience way. But I think, when we look at projects that have slightly more complex goals, we work to be kind of more proactive. We could, in a sense, when we're designing these things, we're able to kind of be agnostic to the tech that we use. We know that the speed of growth in multiple different areas, certainly at the moment, if you look at virtual events and more sort of corporate virtual events, just the speed of which platforms are entering the market to sort of respond to those different needs is such that we need to keep sort of one step ahead of those. So when we're talking about investment, we obviously understand that, brands investing in this space want to see a return. So it's up to us to understand levels of engagement that we can expect, access and scale that we can expect, and really build that into the activations and the experiences that we're creating. We kind of think about it, are we doing a one-off big bang moment, or is this something that we want consumers and our audiences to interact with over time? Is it more relevant then to invest in a kind of ownable branded platform, or use third-party technology? And, this is where our expertise really lies, is really having a very broad view of the market, the platforms, and the different options that we can use. It might be, as Min-Wei says, that you might want to design a website. There might be something within a social platform that's going to be really radical and really new that we can innovate around, kind of create the engagement. But, understanding also what the return for our clients is going to be is really fundamental in the planning process. We obviously use traditional metrics, but we also know in this space, simply by being immersed in a brand or a branded world or environment, that brand recall is impacted, and brand engagement is impacted. So these are metrics and systems that we need to ensure are upfront when we're delivering projects, and certainly are fundamental to our planning process. We work with numerous different partners, so understanding the impact that we're creating is really kind of first and foremost for us. I think we mentioned virtual events. We've seen such a huge amount of different players come, run the world, gather, so many different options. And I think these are all tailored to the change in sort of consumer habits. And obviously, we wouldn't be able to probably do this, Min-Wei, without talking about the last year and the impact around consumer demand and consumer behavior. So yeah, I'd love you to talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're having this event virtually, so that's testament to how things have changed. And I'm sure everybody feels this, but COVID has definitely had a lasting impact and will continue to have a lasting impact on the way that we conduct work and just daily life in general. So talking about some of the trends that have impacted consumer behavior, the most prominent thing I think is screen fatigue. That's like a real thing. I'm sure everybody feels that in some way, shape, or form, because we do everything behind the screen: work, entertainment, consuming the news, going to the gym. But unfortunately, I think a lot of these experiences are largely passive. The way that they're organized, you either are watching one person speak, or it's a situation where group interaction is very limited due to audio and video lag. So the benefits of real-time face-to-face meetings are lost, and we've sort of lost the ability to organically read another person's body language. We, don't have spontaneous water cooler banter that may spark new ideas. So I think people are becoming a lot more disconnected from one another, unfortunately. So I think the question we need to be asking ourselves when we continue to build these types of experiences is, how can we possibly bring those elements back into these things that we're building during this time of social distancing, and really being attuned to how people are feeling, and providing for them. So, it's thinking about, should we be exploring other mediums, for example, audio, that reduces screen time, so having a purely immersive audio experience. Is there a way for us to safely make use of outdoor environments, hopefully once, we're allowed to go outside and, amass, and maybe not amass, but just like, safely navigate bigger public spaces? Is there a way for us to maybe use augmented reality in a clever way? Or, we need to also be making sure that we keep up to pace with the latest developments in hardware. Is there anything that we can lean on that can help transport people, provide a moment of escapism, whether it's, with increasingly powerful tetherless headsets like the Oculus Quest 2. I keep saying Oculus Quest. I do not work for them. I just think it's a really great piece of hardware. But yeah, those are the sort of immediate things that I'm seeing in terms of trends. And then for the long term, like I mentioned earlier, I feel like our new normal has really caused us to form habits that will stick. So things like personal hygiene, like just us being more aware of things that we touch outside, it's going to be, prevalent. So, in the future, depending on how well the vaccines work, if we're able to sort of gather again in public spaces or indoor spaces in a group, when we design those types of experiences, again, I think we need to be mindful of things that we're touching. Looking into technology like voice control, hand and body tracking, air touch screens, or gaze detection, as opposed to the traditional ways of how we would interact with certain surfaces in events, would be a good thing to consider for the future.
I think that's really interesting. I also, I think the word empathy is such an interesting word to use when we kind of think about design in these worlds as well. Even sort of without those kind of now very real and very present sort of trends that you've and even behaviors, I suppose, that you've raised. It's really about designing with a really sort of full kind of understanding of the consumer, and being very kind of empathetic to the way that they're going to react to this, and be part of it as well. We have moved from such a world where there was a message that was broadcasted out to audiences, to one that we invite audiences into. And I think, given that, we have to, fundamentally look at what that audience is connecting with now, and what it might want to connect to when we're talking about brands. So, we don't want to interrupt moments. We want to, we want to add benefit and add value to the lives of the audiences that, that we're talking to, and create stuff that is, great and really interesting and really culturally relevant, and a lot of people want to gather around. I think, when we sort of think about it, sort of, what are we creating that people can gather around or gather within? It's those kind of, design processes that I think we're using, very much from the start. So Min-Wei, I know we've talked about the future, and maybe we'll never talk about the past again. Maybe this is.
I hope not. We can learn a lot from the past, but I suppose this is the title of this is the future. I mean, of this whole thing is the future of creative technology. So
there's no past. Tell me, we all love a prediction. Tell me what your predictions are. I'm going to say for the year or a couple of years ahead.
Well, I think, as the vaccines and all that sort of global vaccine program is being rolled out, and we start to see how effective that program is across the world, we're probably going to see, I'm hopeful, a return, to to physical activations again. However, I do think that now that we've had so much learnings and from digital virtual events, we're probably going to see a sort of hybrid with, you know, physical events as well as virtual. I think it's much not easier, but it, you know, in order to expand the audience of a physical event, having a sort of virtual add-on or way that people from like other countries can sort of engage with that event would probably be a thing. And then also, I mean, so like you mentioned earlier, there are so many different sort of platforms that are popping up that are trying to solve the problem of, you know, fixing the virtual meeting and all those sort of things that I mentioned that have been lost between, you know, real time face-to-face contact. I feel like once somebody smart out there has managed to sort of connect all the dots of those, because I feel like each of those platforms are solving one problem, but there's no single thing that's solving everything at the moment. Once we have someone very clever who figures all of that out, you know, I think virtual meetings are definitely, or virtual events are definitely here to stay. Because again, why would I just sort of, you know, limit myself to a single location, a single time when I can invite everybody from all over the world to attend a virtual concert, attend, you know, a virtual conference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's bang on. And I know you didn't want to say the word digital, so well done for avoiding that word, Min-Wei.
Thanks for saying it for me.
I know, it's quite a word. So
Yeah.
my two sort of feelings or predictions are around, I think the hardware is a really interesting one. I think that, you know, Oculus Quest 2, we don't work for them, really has demonstrated, you know, an accessible VR product that is, you know, has kind of really upped the standard of which people can now, you know, expect. So I think as more brands look to create experiences within that as well, and there's a reasonably accessible price point for that, obviously, you know, it's still pretty high. I think hardware, and even looking at the Apple, you know, Glass products, the Google Glass products, I think, you know, even though those were ridiculed, it's the classic, you know, they are going to start coming. And I think we're going to get used to looking at more kind of that hardware. And I think there's also, you know, obviously very fondly remember some of the high street stores that are now no more. But I think retail's going to have a really interesting shift in how we shop. You know, social media now very much has moved away from just discovery to you know, purchase. Having bought multiple things in Instagram that I don't want, I can attest for that. But you know, we're able to do all the retail experience now in social. So I think we can expect different ways and different patterns to emerge about how we're being sold to. I read somewhere the other day, which is alarming and exciting in the same, I think, in the same way, of sort of QVC re-emerging as a very sort of, you know, important kind of mechanic of how we kind of live shop. So I think those are my two predictions. Look out for hardware. Look out for hardware that we're going to, you know, wearable base head hardware, and, you know, watch out, QVC is coming back. And it, you know, who knows? I think that's, you know, I think that's us done, Min-Wei. It's been great talking to you.
Great talking to you too, Anna.
I'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you later.